The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. We're glad that you've joined us today. Today we're going to be talking about a fascinating subject about foods and how they affect the mind. And talking with us about this important subject is Dr. Tim Arnott. Dr. Arnott is a medical doctor who practices medicine at the Lifestyle Center of America in Oklahoma. Dr. Arnott, we're glad that you're with us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
You've been practicing medicine for about 14 years. You've been at the Lifestyle Center for what, 3 years now?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes, it is.
And you're helping people reverse the common killers in Western diseases. Isn't that right?
That's correct. At the Lifestyle Center of America, we're involved in removing the cause of disease.
Now, you know, we've entitled the program today, Medicine for the Mind. And I assume that there's a lot of people that come with a lot of illnesses and different things, but ultimately it comes down to things that they can actually deal with on the basis of choices and things in their mind.
There are things that we can do to actually help fight depression besides taking a medicine. And many individuals are familiar with the Prozac, the Paxil, the Cerazone, different medicines that help raise this neurotransmitter, the chemical in the brain called serotonin, and that does help to boost our mood. But there's some side effects, and there's always side effects with medicine. And so, you know, researchers are looking for other ways to do what these medicines do.
So, you know, sometimes this is axiom, physician, heal yourself. But what about patient, heal yourself? If you were recommending a food that people should eat or something that would help relieve depression, what would it be?
Well, Dr. Smith at Littlemore Hospital in Oxford, England, actually took patients that had major depressive disorder. They had been treated with medicine, and they had recovered, and they were no longer on medicine. And what he actually did was to feed them 2 different beverages. And one beverage actually had no tryptophan in it. And so they were getting nutrients, but they were not getting tryptophan. And in the other beverage, and they were treated in a serial manner so they could see what happened to these individuals with their depressive symptoms after getting tryptophan and after getting no tryptophan. And what they discovered was that almost 2/3 of those individuals who had been depressed but were no longer depressed reverted back to their depressive symptoms when they were given this beverage that had no tryptophan in it whatsoever. And they actually measured this with a test, one of the typical Hamilton depression rating scale. And what they found was the individuals who got the tryptophan essentially had no increase in that depression scale. Those who had no tryptophan in their diet actually had a significant increase in their depression scale.
So foods high in tryptophan. What is tryptophan?
Tryptophan is an amino acid. It's one of the protein
So what were the building
blocks.
blocks of protein?
That's right.
What foods would this be in?
Well, nuts and seeds and beans are important.
Tofu?
Tofu is an excellent source of tryptophan.
What if I don't like tofu and I never tasted it?
Well, you know, seeds are an important...
Soybeans?
Soybeans, of course, absolutely. In fact, that'd be the best way to get your soy is in the whole form. But tryptophan is the raw material that serotonin is made out of. And they've actually shown that if you increase the tryptophan in the diet, you can increase the serotonin that's going to be made in the brain, because, you know, we're made on this basis of you're only what you eat. I mean, you are what you eat. And if you get the raw material to the body, then it can make the important neurotransmitters.
So tryptophan's then made into, I guess, serotonin or something like that. Is there anything else that we need to eat with it, or can we just go ahead and eat those seeds and we're okay?
Well, actually, vitamin B6 is also very important for them.
Where do you find that?
Well, vitamin B6 is going to be found in vegetables. It's going to be found in grains, whole grains, of course.
I see.
So if you're eating a wide variety of vegetables, if you're eating things like bananas, and if you have insulin resistance or diabetes, you want to get those bananas on the green side rather than on the very ripe side, because they're more starchy there rather than so much sugar. But these foods, vegetables, bananas, and grains are rich in B6, and that can help.
So seeds and vegetables. So in other words, the Genesis 1:29 diet, the original diet in the Bible. Just
That's
look at that.
correct. If you if you eat foods as the Creator offers them to you from the ground, you're going to get B6 and be able to make that serotonin.
So depression, you know, it's a huge thing people struggle with, and I suppose people that come through the Lifestyle Center of America deal with this. Maybe it's an underlying cause that you identify right while they're there. Is that right?
Absolutely. I mean, depression is an underlying side diagnosis in many conditions. And I mean, it can be once you develop diabetes and its complications, that can lead to depression. Mm-hmm. Having a heart attack can lead to post-MI depression.
Or even talking about it can depress us.
Absolutely.
But what about high-protein diets? Some people say, well, I'm doing this kind of diet to lose weight. Are there any hazards with that on the mind?
Well, actually, there are problems with high-protein diets in that high protein simply means that you have lots of amino acids coming at the body. You have a lot of amino acids coming at the cells of the body, and actually the amount of tryptophan that your body is able to take advantage of and use to make serotonin under the conditions of a high protein diet are reduced. So if you're on a high protein diet, you get less serotonin because you have less tryptophan being converted into serotonin. There are competing amino acids in high-protein foods that compete with serotonin, compete with tryptophan, reducing your serotonin level.
So certainly, if you're struggling with depression or different things, the low-carb plan of losing weight is not something to look at.
That is absolutely the case, and in fact, fatigue and symptoms of depression are likely to show up on a low-carbohydrate diet because of all the competing amino acids competing with tryptophan. And again, tryptophan is the raw material for what you need in your brain to feel happy and to have that positive mood.
Okay, so we've talked about tryptophan, seeds of all kinds, and we've talked about vitamin B to change that into what we need, but anything else that we need to know about vitamin B?
Well, actually, there's researchers, Dr. Bernstein, for example, at the New York Academy of Sciences, discovered that there are B vitamins that are important. Folic acid is one of the important B vitamins. B12 is also important. Researchers have discovered that individuals who are depressed are low in folic acid. They are low in vitamin B12, and folic acid, for example, is going to be found in whole grains. It's going to be found in beans, and especially in the dark green leafy vegetables.
Ah, there they are again. That's always when I was in nurses training, taking exams. Whenever it said dark green leafy vegetables, I knew that was the right answer.
You know, that's the most protective food on the planet, and the most toxic food on the planet is partially hydrogenated vegetable oil. So, B vitamins are important. Folic acid is important. And vitamin B12 also may be important for limiting depression and reducing symptoms. And that's important because as you transfer over to a plant-based diet, one of the things you're going to be missing out on more and more is vitamin B12.
Where do you get vitamin B12?
Well, vitamin B12 is made only by bacteria on this planet. It's made only by anaerobic bacteria, which are bacteria that don't require oxygen. And so, you can get B12 from animal products because animal products have a lot of bacterial contamination. And
well, that's a very nutritious thought to think that.
But the problem with animal products is they can give you all these Western diseases.
So you have to take a supplement?
So you really do need to take a supplement.
Okay.
Now, if you're in a third world country, if you're in Siberia, if you're in Africa, I was in Africa just last year, and I sat down with a bunch of individuals to eat a meal, and they were using fingers for utensils. And so if you're going to get more bacteria into your system that way. And individuals are living closer to the earth. They're growing their own food. They're growing organic produce. And they're not using all of the hot water and detergents and soaps and antibacterial soaps. They're going to have more friendly bacterial exposure. They're going to get more of the vitamin B12. And that's what we see. Individuals in these third world countries who are even vegan, total vegetarians, they're not B12 deficient. But here we are in every study that looks at it.
I never thought I'd hear a doctor talk about friendly bacterial exposure.
Well, that's true.
So in other words, maybe not wash my hands or brush my teeth as much?
Well, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend that, but definitely get away from the antibacterial soaps. But in this country, where we're not growing our own food, there's a lot of pesticides going on to the fruits and vegetables, for example. You really need to take a supplement. And if you don't, you don't have to take my word for that, but check your vitamin B12 level. And if that is not near the top of the range, right around 800, 1,000, you're going to be missing out.
What happens when you're low on vitamin B12 besides depression? Can it mess your body up otherwise?
Absolutely. I mean, you can actually be your immune system can be compromised. In fact, they've actually done studies taking nursing home patients, individuals in extended care facilities, and they have vaccinated them with the pneumovax, the bacteria, the pneumococcal vaccine, and they vaccinated those who had enough B12 in their body and those who did not have enough B12, and those who were B12 deficient actually had a significantly lower antibody response to that vaccine.
Interesting.
And so, in fact, I remember being a total vegetarian back in Iowa, and if I stepped outside for just the shortest period of time, I would invariably come down with a head cold, sinus infection, bronchitis.
So there's people out there that seem to be doing everything healthy, but they get sick all the time. They need to check their vitamin B12
Absolutely.
level.
Once I started taking vitamin B12, never had a problem. Can go out without a shirt in the coldest weather, not an issue. B12 is important whenever you're going to divide a cell, whenever you're going to make DNA. And two of the most rapidly dividing cell populations in the body are red cells and white blood cells, which are
your immune system.
Your immune system, your oxygen-carrying cells. So if you don't have enough B12, you can become you can become anemic, not iron deficient anemic, but anemic, and you can become white blood cell weak. In other words, white blood cells aren't working.
That really explains a lot, because I've heard so many people that talk about how they do everything healthy, but they may be having that. So you can get that checked easily, vitamin B12. Can you get it checked easily with your physician?
Absolutely.
Now, talking about foods and the mind again, we're talking about the mind and medicine, and this sense of well-being that comes from serotonin levels. Are there any other things we need to know? What's the most powerful way to increase that level?
Well, we've talked before on this program about something that is very simple, and there are two natural remedies that the Creator talks about a lot, and those two, or that He emphasizes a lot, those two are fresh air and sunlight.
I think you have a graphic on sunlight, don't you?
Sunlight, yeah, we probably have a graphic. And sunlight is probably the most powerful way that you can raise your serotonin level.
Just go outside. How long?
As soon as your eyes are exposed to that bright intensity light, your serotonin level will shoot up.
So on this graphic, it shows on a
what we see
bright
here,
day, 395?
395 is the amount of serotonin being produced on a bright day if you're standing outside.
Versus a dull day, it's only 49.
That's right. It's actually 8 times more serotonin made in your brain when you're standing outside on a bright day. But notice, the amount of serotonin that you make outside on a dull day is not anywhere near in other words, it's much more than what you would make inside day in and day out.
Okay.
So even on a dull day, you're going to make more serotonin than you make inside, so you need to get outside.
So it's really true, that little song, so let the sunshine in and face it with a grin.
The
sun shines in.
That's exactly right.
And then you grin.
And in fact, we're told in the Scriptures that in His presence is fullness of joy. We're told that Christ is the Son of righteousness, and there is a story, so to speak, in nature that shows a spiritual lesson, and that is, if you're in front of the sun, the sunlight, the powerful intensity, you're going to raise your serotonin level, you're going to be improving your mood, and if you're in the presence of the sun, S-O-N, you're also going to be experiencing joy. So there's a lesson in nature that illustrates a spiritual principle.
Now, another study you talked about, and I think you have a graphic on this as well, is the relationship between postpartum depression and this whole idea. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we find after a lady delivers a baby is that it's not uncommonly about 5% of women will actually have depression, postpartum depression, and these individuals. They're probably deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, which are important for fighting depression. But what they have found that if they'll take these individuals,
get light therapy, they have a number one. What's that mean?
If they will actually, the number one actually is telling us what their depression scale is. That's their depression scale. In other words, that's the worst situation.
And then after 3 weeks of bright light?
After 3 weeks of bright light therapy, they take these women and they do the Hamilton Depression Scale again, and they actually are at significantly lower.
50% less? Is that what that means?
50% less, less depression manifested on this test than when they had none of the bright light. So bright light is actually able to help boost serotonin level in these women at the time of pregnancy and help them move away from depression.
We're talking with Dr. Tim Arnott. He's a physician at the Lifestyle Center in America. He helps people that are suffering with the common Western diseases, one of which is depression. And we're talking about the mind and medications for the mind, if you will, that you can access. When we come back, we're going to talk about exercise. We're going to talk about other things and how they relate to your mind and to those qualities you need to have that sense of well-being. We hope you join us when we come back.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Diehl and Dr. Eileen Ludington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who are able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Diehl and Dr. Ludington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge. So call or write today.
Welcome back. We've been talking with Dr. Tim Arnott. We've been talking about medicine and the mind. And Dr. Arnott helps people at the Lifestyle Center of America to reverse or stop, or better yet, prevent the common diseases that afflict those in Western countries and around the world as well. And Dr. Arnott, we've been talking about the mind. We've been talking about substances that give us a sense of well-being that we eat, foods that are high in tryptophan. You've said seeds and nuts and grains can help us with that. And then also make sure and get vitamin B6 and the B vitamins that can help that process go on. You've talked about folic acid. You've talked about vitamin B12, and make sure we're getting those things. And it's pretty simple to find out whether you are or not just by looking at what you eat. And we've talked about sunlight. What about exercise, though?
Well, before we talk about exercise, I just want to mention about B12.
B12 again, okay.
Because, there's a wide B12 range, anywhere from 200 to 1,000. And if you just get a B12 level and you're told that you're okay, that may mean you have a level of 300 or a level of 400. Well, what you need to know is that the best B12 level for getting a strong immune system and, frankly, for helping depression probably, is going to be getting your B12 level near the top of the reference range, 900, 1,000, somewhere up there. The reason for that is that you will actually help lower another amino acid that's important for chronic disease prevention, heart attack prevention, stroke prevention, and that is homocysteine. So just be careful that you don't just get a B12 level and be told that it's okay. You want to make sure it's optimal right up near the top. That's where you want to be.
Okay. Well,
now, exercise, yes, exercise has been shown to be important. In fact, there are studies that have shown that exercise put head-to-head with an SSRI, one of these serotonin reuptake inhibitors that raise the serotonin level, they are just as effective. Exercise is just as effective as one of the serotonin reuptake inhibitors when put head-to-head for mild depression. So that's something that you definitely want to include in your regimen.
So if you're depressed or struggling with that, know someone that is, maybe walk with them out in the sunlight as you're eating seeds.
That's exactly right. Now,
okay.
Dr. Kennedy at the University of New Orleans actually showed that exercise can reduce a number of important parameters, including depression, including anger, including fatigue, and he found out that the more intense the exercise, the better. So if you can be doing a brisk walk, that's actually the most valuable exercise for reducing symptoms of depression. And interestingly enough, a more brisk walk, and again, you want to build up to this gradually. You don't want to just go out and start a brisk walk necessarily.
You can't just run down the block and not be depressed.
That's exactly right. But the more intense the walking, and you don't have to be jogging, the more intense the walking, the lower the risk of developing diabetes, the lower the risk of developing heart disease, the lower the risk of getting a stroke. And the more intense the activity, the better.
How does health of the mind affect the body? I mean,
well,
we've alluded to that some, but can you expand on that a little more?
You know, there was a friend of mine who lived on the East Coast, and this gentleman was suffering with depression for a number of years. And I mean, he was a chronic problem. It was affecting his relationships with his family. It was affecting essentially all areas of his life. And he was like in a pit and couldn't get out of this pit of depression. And then he came across some information, and that information was in a book by Dr. Neil Nedley, and the book was called Depression, The Way Out.
Okay.
And what that book basically said was there are individuals who are not getting enough of an essential fat. Essential means the body cannot make it. You must eat it in order to get it into your body. An essential fat. They're not getting enough. Their brain isn't getting enough of these essential fats. And what they've discovered that individuals who are low in the omega-3 fats, the alpha-linolenic acid, for example, these fats that are only made by plants, if you're not getting enough, you can be depressed. When he found that out, he learned in Dr. Nedley's book that salmon and fish were an excellent source of these omega-3 fats.
Okay.
Well, he also... and there were quite a bit of information in that same book about the disadvantages of fish, but it did say that they were rich in omega-3 fats. And so he went out and started having salmon a number of times a week. Well, lo and behold, this individual's depression symptoms started to abate. And at that point...
So they went away. Okay.
It started to go away. And at that point, he had a spiritual transformation. And so it was, for this gentleman, it was not until he had replaced the physical needs, he had met the physical needs of the body, in this case, omega-3 fat, of course there's many others, that he was able to understand and appreciate spiritual things. And so a lot of times we may wonder why we are feeling down, we're having a Christian experience slump, if you will, maybe we're backsliding, maybe we've forgotten about God. It could be that we're missing something inside the body, a nutrient that we need. So there is a significant connection between our physical body and nutrition and whether we're able to have a healthy mind and a healthy spirituality.
So you've alluded then to something here as well. Another marker that can help us know that we may be struggling with depression is our spiritual sense of well-being and whatnot. And you've alluded to the fact that there's a Creator and there's a Lord there that's interested in us. And I know He has an owner's manual as well. We call that the Bible. Is there any help in the owner's manual, if you will, when people are struggling or suffering with depression?
We know one of the things that we face quite a bit in the lifestyle medicine and trying to help people overcome habits are this whole idea of, okay, you move away from a habit for a short period of time, but within 6 months you're back doing the very same thing. And so there's this idea in lifestyle medicine or lifestyle change of recidivism. And that's one of the major complaints that people have with lifestyle change is that they actually say, well, people
they're going to go back
they're going to go back to it.
So what does the book say about that?
Well, at the Lifestyle Center of America, we actually have one of our lectures where we share with individuals tools to help them achieve permanent lifestyle change. And part of those tools come from the owner's manual. And there's something very important in the owner's manual, and that is that we have a creator that doesn't have lifestyle hang-ups. He doesn't have depression.
Okay.
He is the source of happiness, and there's a principle, a law in the universe, that by beholding, we become changed.
You'd say that's the most important law.
That's the most important law. In fact, one of the reasons for depression is that we spend a lot of time looking and listening to things on the news, in the newspaper, on the radio, over the airwaves, in many different ways that are negative, that are very depression promoting.
And you have a graphic here that has these ways that we can avoid going back to destructive behaviors. Let's look at those as we're closing out the program. The first one here, it says, "Behold the Lamb of God which taketh away the sin of the world." So looking at Jesus, right?
That's correct. In fact, most of us are short on time. And if you're short on time and you want to actually focus on an area that can bring the most change for the time that you spend, you want to focus on the crucifixion, the closing scenes. You want to focus on the suffering Savior, and that is where you're going to actually have the most power to change lifestyle habits, the most power to raise you up and bring you into the presence of the Creator. And remember, in His presence is fullness of joy.
Next graphic we have is, what's our next thing? The Creator is holy, harmless, undefiled.
That's right. In fact, we were talking earlier about one of the reasons for depression is that we focus on things that are they're depressing.
So when we look at Him, we don't get depressed.
As we focus on someone who's holy, harmless, undefiled, pure, then that's what we become like. That's a law of the universe we can take advantage of.
Next, we have, "I, if I be lifted up, will from the earth will draw all unto me."
There are some who think that they're hopeless, that they've gotten discouraged. They think that there's really no hope for me. The owner's manual tells us that all will be drawn to the Savior if they behold.
Well, of course, He's the center of health and healing and wholeness. Our last one here in your list was, let's look at that last one. "This is life eternal, that they might know the Creator."
That's right. One of the things we tell or we encourage our participants at Lifestyle Center of America is, yes, you can adopt healthy principles and maybe live a little bit longer, but if you miss out on eternity, you've missed out on everything.
We've been talking with Dr. Tim Arnott. We've been talking about medicine for the mind, and Dr. Arnott's a physician at the Lifestyle Center in America. He's written a recent book summarizing many of these different principles. We hope that today's program has been helpful to you, and that as a result of it, you'll have health that lasts not just for now, but lasts for a lifetime.